Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first Friday of the 2022 Triad Conference, sponsored by Triad of Wisconsin and RSVP of Dane County. My name is Leslie Fox. I'm a community deputy with the Dane County Sheriff's Office and a Triad Conference committee member. A few housekeeping items before I introduce our first speaker. If you have a question during today's presentation, please use the Q&A or chat box. We will monitor both boxes and will bring the questions to our presenters' attention near the end of the session. Additionally, if you're planning on submitting for continuing education hours, attendance certificates will be emailed 1 to 2 weeks after the conference ends. You can expect these by mid-November. Finally, we will email all participants a survey after the conference series ends in late October. We hope you will take a few minutes to share feedback and suggestions for next year. Our first speaker today is Dane County Sheriff Kalvin Barrett. Sheriff Kalvin Barrett is the first African-American sheriff in the history of the Dane County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Barrett comes from a family of peace officers, as his father was a San Diego County Marshal, now the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Barrett earned an BA in Sociology from the University of Wisconsin and lettered all 4 years as a member of the Wisconsin Badgers football team. Sheriff Barrett continued his education and earned an MA in criminal justice in 2020. Sheriff Barrett has served as a deputy sheriff with the Dane County Sheriff's Office and as a police officer with both the Sun Prairie and the Wisconsin State Fair Park Police Departments. Prior to becoming the 53rd Dane County Sheriff, he was an educator, instructor, and faculty director in the Criminal Justice Studies program at Madison College. As the Dane County Sheriff, his leadership philosophy is to build relationships and solve community problems through evidence-based decision-making and procedural justice. Sheriff Barrett has been married for 16 years and has 2 intelligent and strong-willed daughters. The Barrett family has an 8-year-old black lab mixed rescue named Darby. Sheriff Barrett.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for that introduction, Deputy Fox. I want to first thank you all for being here for this conference, and it is a true honor for me to sit here as the 53rd Sheriff of Dane County, but also I am blessed with the opportunity to address and speak to you and open this conference up with the things that we're working on, but also our philosophy here at the Dane County Sheriff's Office. I want to next thank not only the community, but members of our Sheriff's Office like Deputy Leslie Fox. She is, when we start talking about what a peace officer is, a peacekeeper is, in regards to being a community deputy at our Sheriff's Office. She is the jack of all trades and evolves to whatever the community needs of her. And that is the best individual you can have in this position, especially serving our communities. As a community officer, she does so many different things and provides the best service out there that's possible. So thank you so much, Deputy Fox, for your leadership and your compassion and your service, not only to the Dane County Sheriff's Office, but to the great people of Dane County here in the communities that we serve. So I just wanted to talk a little bit. I'd like to give a little a brief on the topics that we're going to talk about here in the conversation that we have, and then we'll follow up with some questions after. First, we're going to talk about collaboration. What exactly is that and how it's important to us serving the community together? And that's the key word we're going to talk about is together and relationships. Next, we're going to get into what exactly is peacekeeping? What exactly is a peace officer? What is the philosophy and where did it come from? Next, we're going to talk about the community role. What is the role of the community in helping us serve and why it's so important that we are together in our service? And last, we're going to get into the initiatives that the Dane County Sheriff's Office has implemented or is in the process of implementing in order to really show how peacekeeping is the future of our profession. So next, let's talk about the triad and the Dane County Sheriff's Office collaboration. I was doing some research and read that the triad promotes wellness and the health of older adults. And the mission statement of the Dane County Sheriff's Office is to build relationships and solve problems through evidence-based decision-making and procedural justice. And that is the key here, is relationships. We have to be able to collaborate and work well with one another in order to properly serve our communities. Our ultimate goal at the Dane County Sheriff's Office and in our mindset and our philosophy of peacekeeping is to reduce victimization through proactive community-oriented policing. That is the goal, and the key is proactive. You may ask yourself, well, why is that important? Why is it important for the collaboration to come? Well, we've seen from historical failures in our profession that if we do not have established and trust with our communities, it creates additional barriers to public safety. And we want to remove those barriers so that we can not only be there for the community in good times, but also in times of stress as well. I always like to refer back to Sir Robert Peel, who is known as the founding father of our profession, where he says in one of his 9 principles that the police are the public and the public are the police, and goes on to explain that every citizen is responsible for the interest of the community welfare and existence, because it takes all of us. It takes every phone call, it takes every committee, it takes every organization, it takes every suggestion, every conversation helps us better serve the community, and that's the key. Your input, your observations, your ideas, and your compassion saves lives. And please don't ever forget that. You save lives in everything that you do, not only with this organization, but in every other organization that takes place in all of our communities across the United States. One of the 4 pillars of procedural justice, which is in our mission statement, is voice. And voice means that we listen and sincerely consider the community's voice before making decisions. That's why our collaboration is important, and that's why what we do together saves lives and keeps our communities safe. So next, a lot of times people say, well, what is peacekeeping? Matter of fact, I had a neighbor say when they were looking at something that they thought I misspelled or had a typo in what we put when I said peace officer, and they thought we meant police officer. No, I actually mean peace officer. And this is something that is a relative new concept to Wisconsin and to Dane County, but it's not around the country. And I'll explain here. So the first question I commonly get is, well, Sheriff, where did you get this from? Where did peacekeeping come from? Well, the first place you start is in the Wisconsin State Statutes, chapter 56.28, that defines the powers and the duties of peace officers. And it specifically states that the sheriff, his deputies, or his designees are to keep and preserve the peace. That is where this comes from. If you look at different parts of the country where the word peace officer is quite normal, in California, they have their post or their peace officer standards and training division that sets the standard and trainings for their entire state for all of their professions. They've been using the term peace officer since 1959. So that is the value of diverse ideas, diverse thoughts, diverse education, but also putting individuals in positions of influence that come from different parts of the country. Because my father was in law enforcement. He was a San Diego County Marshal, and I remember studying with him the post test as he was going through the law enforcement academy. So taking that as a child and a young adolescent and bringing that here to Dane County is the true value of diversity and really bringing a new perspective and an innovative perspective to our profession. We have proactive efforts in order to use evidence-based decision-making in what we do. Now, another question I get is, well, what exactly is evidence-based decision-making? And it is so important to us here at the Dane County Sheriff's Office that I made sure we put that in our mission statement. And our mission statement defines what we do on a daily basis, every day that we wake up and we put on this badge, that we have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution and protect the people of the communities we serve. Evidence-based decision-making is grounded in the best available research, evidence, and from the field and relevant contextual evidence. So what that means is we make decisions based off of data, empirical data that a lot of times is separate from the biases that we all bring into our professionals and our profession and our everyday life. We have to make sure that we're taking proactive approaches like problem-oriented policing and community-oriented policing in everything that we do, because it is so important that we go upstream. And let me explain a little bit about this upstream example I use a lot. I see our criminal justice system as a fast-flowing river. And at the bottom of that river stands the criminal justice system, prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, peace officers, the Dane County Sheriff's Office. We are in a position where we are constantly pulling people out of that river and putting them into the criminal justice system. Fast-flowing river, people are falling in upstream, we are pulling them out of the river downstream. To be true and evidence-based and be proactive in what we do to really get to the root causes of crime, we need to go upstream and find out why people are falling in that river in the first place. Because if we can reduce people from falling in the river in the first place, that means there's less people that we're pulling out of the river downstream. And that's why it's so important that we have this approach and this philosophy of peacekeeping. Because we are not going to arrest our way out of the issues that we see in our criminal justice system, nor in our society as a whole. We are not going to arrest our way out of addiction. We are not going to arrest our way out of violent crime, and we are not going to be able to arrest our way out of poverty. We have to get to the true root causes to understand why it's happening so that we can implement proactive solutions to those problems that are there. Now, please don't misunderstand the peace with lack of enforcement, and that's not the case. We understand at the Dane County Sheriff's Office and in this philosophy that incarceration is indeed needed to interrupt the cycles of violence to protect victims, survivors, their families, and the community as a whole. That is a must, and we understand that. But we want to make sure that we are providing individuals with every opportunity before making that decision to incarcerate. Now, what is your role? What do you do? If you've never been told how important your role is to helping us, I'm telling you now, you play a huge role in our success in serving the people of the communities that we serve. I strongly suggest and urge each and every one of you to continue to be active, be present at meetings, community organizations, town hall meetings, county board meetings, and city council meetings as well. Be vocal, get information and speak to your elected officials, speak to your county board supervisors and your alderpersons to understand and provide insight on where you think we need to be successful moving forward. We need your help. We need resources. We need your voice to tell those that are out there that it takes resources in order for us to effectively serve the communities that we serve. We have to be able to have resources and funds to support appropriate trainings, to support appropriate education, vehicles for safety, staffing. We have to provide our staff with days off, vacation, so that they maintain that appropriate work-life balance. In order for us to do that, we have to have resources to identify, qualify, and attract the best talent that's out there and bring them in to serve with us in our profession here at the Sheriff's Office. We need resources to continue our wellness days for our deputies so that we can continue to treat physical illness or treat mental illness like we treat physical illness. And if you didn't know, mental illness in our profession has a stigma, and it's something that we typically and historically have hidden from. But in this new 21st century philosophy of policing, we need to identify where we have weaknesses and provide resources to our staff so that they can better serve you. That is all that takes. That is why it's important for your voice to be out there in the community and play an active role in community safety. Now let's talk about, well, what are the initiatives, right? I've talked about where we're at, what our philosophy is, but also I'm very clear in my community work that talking about it and meeting about it is one step. We have to take actionable steps in order to provide and be where we want to be. So here are just some of the few initiatives that we have at the Dane County Sheriff's Office to take those steps towards proactive community service and not the traditional reactive community service. If you haven't had a chance to check, if you go to danesheriff.com, you can learn more about our Sheriff's Office and the different roles that we have. But on there, you'll see that our vision statement specifically states that we strive to create a peaceful community to live, work, and visit by serving Dane County as a respected and trusted sheriff's office. That is the vision. That is where I see ourselves moving for the next 100 years as peace officers here in Dane County. So let's talk about that evidence base. What is the evidence base implementations that have been done or implemented at the Dane County Sheriff's Office that will help? First, I want to start with our MAT program, and that stands for the Medication Assisted Treatment Program. This is an evidence-based program that has shown studies throughout the East Coast and in other parts of the country that if you continue individuals on their opioid use disorder medications, it has a significant outcome on reducing recidivism. And if you're not familiar with what recidivism is the rate to which one returns back into jail, committing multiple crimes, coming back after being released. MAT is a evidence-based implementation in a program that continues medications when individuals are incarcerated. Before April 1st of 2022, the Dane County Sheriff's Office would stop providing individuals with the medications they were prescribed by a medical doctor once they were incarcerated. As of April 1st, we now continue those medications so we no longer interrupt or create a barrier to that individual's treatment. And the way we looked at that is, well, if it was a medication for high blood pressure or diabetes, would we stop it? And the answer was no. So the question that we asked ourselves, then why are we stopping it when it comes to opioid use disorder? That is what we talk about with evidence-based decision-making and implementing proactive approaches to our criminal justice system and reducing recidivism. We also take actions like our stolen auto recovery operations. This is something that took place yesterday, and we're going after and identifying those who are committing those crimes against not only all of the community, but really targeting on the older adults of our community for crime. We not only recovered stolen vehicles yesterday, but also made significant arrests for those who pose a significant threat to our safety. We have our community deputies, which is, I mentioned with Deputy Leslie Fox. She is one of several deputies that form and are out there in the community to build relationships to appropriately solve problems. Proximity breeds care and distance breeds fear. The closer we are with the community, the closer we are with you, the closer we are with those who we incarcerate, the better relationship we're going to have. And that relationship is what allows and builds trust and allows us to move forward and understand why we are out here and doing the things that are happening. Next, I want to talk about our mental health deputies. This is something that we're in the process. We've received funding from the county executive's office to really, like I mentioned earlier, with the greatness of Deputy Fox, and really being able to morph into whatever the community needs us. 7 to 10 years ago, the community needed us to build relationships. They needed outreach. They needed national night out. They needed bike rodeos. They needed to take away the barriers that we're typically seeing between the community and between law enforcement, and so that their relationship and trust can be built. We are now looking to turn that based off of the data that showed our community deputies were spending a lot of time on mental health calls. So what do? Listening to the voice of our community deputies like Deputy Fox, who says, I'm spending a lot of time on this mental health side of things. How can we enhance this and better serve the community? And we came up with an idea with the assistance of the county executive's office to have community deputies now serve as a full-time mental health deputies, and not just one, but a team of them to serve the community. We also have embedded crisis workers at our Dane County Sheriff's Office. The community said that we are tired of seeing police officers arrive to calls for those going through mental health crisis. We agree. So we now have embedded crisis workers through Journey Mental Health who are professionals that go with us to these scenes. And once the scene is safe, we take a step back and the embedded crisis worker takes over. But in the past 15 months of us doing that and using our embedded crisis workers, our community deputies mentioned to me in a meeting last year saying, it would be great if our embedded crisis workers had vehicles so that they can be more mobile and get out to the community, and we don't even need to send a deputy at all. I took that advice, and that's what we put into the budget this year for vehicles and equipment for our embedded crisis workers to have so that they can respond to these calls and allow deputies to focus on different areas of the community. That is the voice we talk about in that procedural justice. And that's why procedural justice is at the base foundation of our mission statement. We've also moved in a direction that now our Huber equals jail diversion. Meaning if someone is sentenced to Huber, which is work release, they now are going to be on an ankle monitor bracelet and out in the community closest to their support systems. Now remember, those who are sentenced to Huber by our judges are typically low-level offenders. The data or the evidence has told us that it's typically low-level drug possession charges or those who have been arrested for OWI. So if we trust them enough on Huber to have them out throughout the day for 12 hours unsupervised, why are we having them sleep in our jail and bringing them back here? The more that people are out in the community next to their families and support systems, better access to jobs, better access to education, better access to programming. But this also is a balance too, because this allows us to identify specifically where these individuals are going and set exclusionary zones so that we can continue to keep the community safe. And this new implementation of this proactive jail diversionary movement focuses on ensuring that it's a perfect balance between public safety, accountability, but rehabilitation. And that's something we typically have forgotten about historically in our criminal justice system is rehabilitation. So how can you as older adults learn what we're doing and the positive things that we're trying to do out in the community? Number one, you can go to our social media accounts on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter to learn more about things that are going on here at the Dane County Sheriff's Office, but also in our tips and reminders that we have for you, done a lot of times by our great community deputies. This includes the 9 p.m. check-in, which is an awesome video put on by our Dane County community deputies that talks about what you should do before you go to bed at 9 p.m. to make sure your doors are locked, to make sure your garage door is closed, and make sure that your vehicles are locked as well to reduce the likelihood of being a victim of a crime. We also have fraud alerts that send that information out when we're starting to see scam calls that are coming through. These individuals, again, are targeting our older population and trying to get money out of them through tactics that include mentioning the Dane County Sheriff's Office name and whatnot. So in conclusion, I want to just say that your voice is valued. Your safety is our top priority. My top priority as a sheriff is public safety and community engagement. And I strive every day that I sit in this office and serve you as your Dane County Sheriff. We want to reduce victimization because when we reduce victimization, we reduce recidivism. And by reducing recidivism, we decrease crime rates. And by decreasing crime rates, we increase public safety. And we can do it together, and we will continue to do it with your help and your success and our collaboration, but most importantly, with relationships and with trust. So thank you so much again for your time. It's an honor to sit before you, and I look forward to answering any and all questions that you may have now or even after, which I'll provide my contact information after. Thank you so much again, and I look forward to our after conversation and questions.
So if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the chat box or the Q&A box. It should be at the bottom of your screen there. And then Sheriff Barrett can answer the questions from there.
Looks like I knocked it out of the park, huh, Les? All right, all right.
Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type it into the chat box or the Q&A box, and then it can be addressed from there.
And that's all right. And what I just put in the chat was my email, which is barrett@danesheriff.com. So if the questions come up after, absolutely send me an email and I can get you in contact or provide you with insight, or even have a sit-down coffee and some meeting and talk about your concerns so we can better continue to build those relationships like we talked about. But also to visit danesheriff.com, which is our website, which talks a lot about the different services and initiatives that we do here at the Dane County Sheriff's Office. On the bottom right of that, you'll see too is all of our social media activity, which is an easy click so that you can see that. But also too, you have access to our press releases when we send information out to media and the press as a whole. Again, that's danesheriff.com.
And it looks like we have a question.
Yes.
Sheriff, I don't know if you can see them, but it goes like this. In a system that relies on an ankle bracelet, how can we improve the monitoring? The current monitoring system seems not to work very well.
Yeah, so number one, it starts with the equipment and the advancement of technologies. What we're seeing now is there's really a shortage of a lot of the equipment that is needed to appropriately do that. The equipment too is starting to break down, and there's backup shortages in the equipment, just like every other field that we're seeing here due to supply chain issues. Also looking at that, there's some additional delays due to the DOC using the same ankle monitoring system that we use. But we're currently looking at ways to enhance it. We're currently looking at ways to minimize the amount of intrusiveness that it creates for the individual, where it's not this huge block on their ankle. But we're also looking at ways to induce the ways that we can identify and track and just continue to course correct and keep individuals on the right course. And so the use of the exclusionary zones, I think, is very important as well, and that we can set zones around different areas like bars, like other certain places or even addresses to ensure that there's safety. And if someone does indeed enter that, it automatically alerts our deputies for an appropriate response. So thank you so much for your question. I would love to learn more. I think it might to learn more ways that we can enhance that and what that looks like from your perspective and your experience.
And then also wondering, do we have enough bail enforcement officers is the next question.
Bail enforcement falls under the courts, so that you understand the responsibilities and the roles of where people fall in our criminal justice system. When they are pre-trial, that is all handled by the courts with their bail monitoring. Once they are sentenced and now in my custody per the Constitution, then I take over responsibility of them and can determine how we house them, whether it's jail diversion, whether that's within the 3 facilities that we have here at the Dane County Sheriff's Office. So I would not be able to speak too well on the bail monitoring side of that, because that's not where our resources are, and that's not under our control when that happens. But once they're sentenced, then they become ours, and I can definitely speak on that as well.
Any other questions for the sheriff?
What is it like? That is a fantastic question. It's a blessing because I'm able to to serve in both capacities and being able to serve the community and keep people safe, but also as a politician and understanding and have the influence on the front end of things like legislation and education and providing different elected officials with insight that they may not have been privy to. So it is a blessing. Any opportunity that I have to influence and lead is just a true blessing. But also it starts with being able to make those evidence-based decisions that we talked about before and making those decisions so that other agencies are following us. Dane County is one of the most progressive and practical counties in the United States when it comes to progressive criminal justice reform. And there are things that we've implemented that at first may not have gone, may have had others scratch their head and wonder, but when they understand the reason why we did things, it really helps. So for example, we changed our language to a person-first language. Instead of referring to those in our care as inmates, we refer to them as residents or incarcerated persons. Now, initially, a lot of people were asking, well, why would you do that? And the question is that it eliminates a barrier for those that are trying to have a warm re-entry back into the community. And if we can eliminate one of those barriers for those that are being released, we are helping reduce that recidivism. And we want to make sure that people are treated with dignity, humanity, and respect. And if we want a facility that matches that, we have to have language and policies that match that as well. Now, we came out with that in the beginning of August, made a press, sent it out to the press on a Monday. And on Friday, the largest sheriff's office in the state of Wisconsin, the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office did something very similar in a language change for their incarcerated individuals, but also for their officers there as well, as they no longer refer to them as correctional officers, but officers, because they understood and realized that evidence shows titles matter. So your question, it is interesting. It is a learning experience, but I know if I continue to do things the right way and for the right reasons, good things will come. So being a sheriff that happens to be a politician is just a blessing. Thank you for your question.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Otherwise, as a reminder, he's included his contact information in the chat area for you. If you think of a question later on, you can message him. Okay, looks like there's something else in the chat box here.
All
Let's
right.
see. So I guess, how do you feel when some politicians are not cooperating with state or federal law enforcement officers? That's what I'm getting from that.
Yeah, when some politicians as you not. Is that ask you? Is that supposed to be ask instead of as you? Politicians ask you not to, is that correct? Okay, excellent. Had to read through that. Ask you not to cooperate. Well, number one and first and foremost, I took an oath, and that oath is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the oath in the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin and the laws that are set here. And that is first and foremost. And that's where the importance comes in that. Now, understanding that as the sheriff, though I am in the political world and seen as a politician, our service to the community doesn't see political parties. We don't take into consideration socioeconomic status. We don't take in consideration geographical locations, urban versus rural. We treat everyone the same. everyone deserves equal protection and fair and impartial service from their peace officer agencies like the Dane County Sheriff's Office. So what it comes down to is being able to have the appropriate resources to go after certain crimes, but also identifying what are those crimes that pose the most significant threat to our community. And that's where we're going to put our focus on as we serve. So when it comes down to that, the best part of this job is being able to stick to that and understand that that oath is number one, and that's what guides not only me, but it guides our entire sheriff's office as well. And thank you so much. That was a great question.
Question, have you ever had to effect an eviction? And if so, what was it like?
Well, me personally, I have not had the opportunity to do an eviction. We do have a civil service or civil execution department or area of our sheriff's office. And that's really with working, that team works directly with the judges and implements the orders of the judges. And I think when I'm having conversations with the community, especially around the issues that we saw at the beginning of the year and last year with the COVID-19 restrictions and different things, is that we are following the orders of the courts. And a lot of times, there's a perception that it's the sheriff or the sheriff's office that is in charge of everything that's happening. And I believe that comes from the fact that every eviction paper that's served has the name Sheriff Kalvin Barrett on it. So I understand completely where that comes from, but understand that when we do these evictions, it's gone through a court process and we are simply following the orders of the judge at that time. And that's what we're executing. So again, we can't bring in our personal opinions. We can't bring in our personal feelings when it comes down to it, because we're following the order of the judge, and that's a binding document. So I have personally not done an eviction. I've been there where individuals and papers have been served, but in regards to actually asking someone to leave their property, I have not had that personal experience. But I know we have multiple deputies that do a fantastic job with educating the community and the public and really taking that peace officer mindset to articulating and explaining the paperwork in the process to individuals before, during, and after the eviction process. Thank you. That was a fantastic question. I will also add to that too, just to add a little, when we talk about, what we do and being a peace officer, it's so important that we bring the human element to what we do. A lot of times when people see the uniform, there's the thought that, we're special and we don't have feelings, or we've trained our minds and our bodies not to feel. And in reality, we are everyday people just like you that's out there. For every 8 hours, or for me, 16 hours that I spend in this uniform, I spend the other amount of hours as a person in the community, as a father, as a husband. And when we do things, even if it is some of the worst parts of our job, we still have feelings and it still hurts us. I'll never forget an example of that happened a couple of months ago, where I ran into Deputy Joe Roush, and he was walking through the halls in the morning, and I asked him, "Hey, how you doing today? How you doing this morning?" And he stopped, and he had this look on his face, and I could see his eyes watering as he's looking at me, and he says, "Sheriff, I've been dreading this day for a very long time. I had served some papers for an individual, and we might have to do an eviction that has children. And that's one of the hardest things to do as a father and as a human being." And I could see that pain in his face and that hurt of what he might have had to do, and the fear and everything that he was thinking about leading up to that day and that weight that's on him. And it was hard to be there and to see that, and to understand that there are some undesirable parts of our job that we have to do. And we still have feelings for that. We still take that home with us. We take it home to our families. We take it home to our significant others. And it just really shows the human aspect of what we do. And please realize that even though we wear this badge, we hurt and cry and feel pain just like everyone else. So again, thank you for that question. It really brought up a memory there of that I wanted to share with you all.
Okay, next question. We're hearing a lot in the news about rainbow fentanyl. Is it here in Dane County? To what degree, if it is? How bad is drug abuse with older adults and senior citizens in our county?
Yeah, so the drug abuse and the addiction, it plays a huge role, and is really kind of a root cause of a lot of crimes that we have. And when looking at that, it's the addiction side of it, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, legal prescription medications or illegal medications, it's affecting all communities, rural and urban areas, and it's affecting all ages of individuals, whether it's teenagers getting addicted to certain substances from prescription medications and moving on to more illegal or illicit drugs. It affects everyone, and it's there. There are data that's out there nationally that says that 80% of those that are incarcerated are suffering from alcohol or other drug abuse, and 40% of those individuals are suffering from mental illness. So when you look at that data, when you look at those numbers, 80% of those that are incarcerated are suffering from some form of substance abuse. And in Wisconsin and in Dane County, it's typically alcohol. And that's something that we see a lot. And that takes a lot of our resources in regards to enforcement, but also those that come into our facility that are under the influence of alcohol. So we have not specifically seen the rainbow, what's being seen in other areas, but fentanyl has been here for a very long time, since I was a police officer at the Sun Prairie Police Department. Whether it's patches, whether it's pills, no matter what it is, it's almost 50 times stronger than your typical opiate, and it is causing a lot of ruckus in our community. We have specific task force that are designed to go after the mid to upper level suppliers of those of fentanyl, so that it's not trickling down into our communities. And so we have a joint a task force with other agencies here in Dane County that focus on that, so that we can keep our community safe, as well as gather intelligence when we know there are batches that are out there that could lead to increased issues with that. So again, fantastic question in regards to where we're at with our drugs. And hopefully I was able to provide you with some insight on where we're currently at, the extent of it, but also what we're doing to help alleviate those issues with these illegal drugs coming into our community.
What pros and cons do you see in marijuana legalization? Many areas that have legalized it have seen big increases in crime.
Yeah, so looking at that data, I'm a part of multiple groups, including the Major County Sheriff's Association, the National Sheriff's Association, but also here in the state, the Badger State Sheriff's Association. And I'm waiting to get more specific data and evidence that shows the increase of crime in those areas, as you suggested. Again, it's not just important just to see that there is an increase or a spike in crime due to those areas that have legalized it, but we have to really take a deep dive into why that is happening. And that's taking some time, as states are just starting to legalize that. There are pros and cons for the legalization of marijuana. Number one, it's a drug that the majority of our community have used at some point in our lives, whether it was high school, middle school, college, or as an adult. We do see the argument on the negative side, or the con, that it can be a gateway drug to other stronger drugs, but it really just depends on that individual and their ability to be addicted to substances and how that works. I see marijuana as taking a lot of time and resources in our community, or from our patrol. But there's really not the specific violence and simple possession that we see with other strong related drugs. We do see the guns, we do see violence in regards to trafficking large amounts of marijuana, but the simple possession of it, we're really not seeing the specific violence related to that. Many communities here in Dane County have, basically not legalized it, but have chosen not to enforce low-level, simple possession of small amounts of marijuana I believe one municipality here made it a $1 fine if it's under a certain amount. I do know our district attorney's office will not take a state charge for less than 28 grams of marijuana by itself, nor will they take a state charge of possession of drug paraphernalia by itself. Now, when it's accompanied with other charges, well, then they will take it, but they typically don't take that due to it. In my experience as a patrol officer with the Sun Prairie Police Department, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the state and has seen a huge increase in crime over the past 12 to 15 years. I have yet to come across someone that was high on marijuana that posed a significant threat to my safety or to the safety of someone else. We typically saw alcohol being the #1 reason for violent crimes and incidents, especially in the domestic world. But that was just my experience in the 5 years that I was a patrol officer. So we will definitely get more information, really look at that, because that's the data we need to determine whether or not the legalization is causing an increase in crime, but more importantly, why is there an increase in crime? And is it due to the legalization of marijuana or not?
So any idea about how much more money the sheriff's department would need if marijuana is legalized?
I don't know if we would need a specific amount of money that if it's legalized. I think a big concern that we would have is how do we determine operating under the influence and what that looks like, and really take a good look at what other agencies throughout the United States are doing where they've legalized it to determine what is a amount that is considered too much of marijuana consumption to operate a motor vehicle. That is a big concern and another con of legalizing that. What does that test look like? What is the specific amount? And what is the evidence or the research that shows what that amount is? Here in Wisconsin, 0.08 is the amount that has been determined to be, if you were at that level or higher, leads to impairment in regards to your ability to operate a motor vehicle. We are still getting data and trying to understand, do we have a test or something that we can implement to determine if someone is too intoxicated legally on marijuana to operate a motor vehicle, and does that pose a threat to the community when they're driving around? So I'm not sure exactly if what amount of money we would need. I do know that throughout the state of Wisconsin, as well as our canine dogs, we are no longer certifying them to use marijuana as something that they can indicate on. And that's simply due to the fact that our surrounding states are starting to legalize that. So there are some things that are taking place in order to adjust and anticipate the eventual legalization of marijuana here in the state of Wisconsin.
Any idea what the percentage of people arrested are senior citizens?
Oh, that is a great question. I can get that to you. That's an easy number to pull with our booking stuff. I don't have that data specifically on me now, but I can get that to Leslie, and Leslie can get that out to the group in regards to what that age is and how many people we are booking. Matter of fact, if you give me 1 second, I can tell you what we have today. So for today, our jail population, it breaks it down. So those that are here, we have those that are incarcerated right now by age group. We have 682 in our custody right now, with 108 on our jail diversion. And of that group, we have, I'll start at the beginning, 27 that are 18 and 19 years old, 191 that are 20 to 29 years old, 247 that are 30 to 39 years old, 126 are 40 to 49, 67 are 50 to 59, and we have 19 that are 16 years or older currently in our jail population today. So I was able to pull that up pretty quickly. So thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Any last questions before we wrap up this first session of the conference? Again, if you think of any questions at a later time, the sheriff has left his contact information and is very open to having you send questions after the fact here. So otherwise, I would just want to say on behalf of the conference committee and everybody, thank you very much, Sheriff, for the great discussion here and for opening up our Triad conference for October for 2022. So we greatly appreciate it.
Hey, well, thank you so much for the time and the great work that you all do. It is a true honor, and I look forward to jumping in and seeing some of the other presentations as well. So thank you all and have a great day.